So I've been planing this board with this hand plane, but I'm still not really getting it flat. So sorry, I'm gonna have to go with the power tools.
My hand planing didn't go completely to waste. It made the board flat-ish so that I only had to take a few passes on the powered planer.
Just putting some borders on it right now.
Before pulling out the marker, I wrote out the words for the sign in pencil and then adjusted them a bit for consistency. I should have used more room for patient since my E and T's ended up a bit more compact when compared to the E and B. Try saying that 10 times fast.
I want to secure it to the workbench so it doesn't move around. So I'm just going to use some double-sided tape. I feel like I always struggle getting the backs off of this double-sided tape. So if any of you have any suggestions on how to get those cleanly off, let me know in the comments. So I'm just going to freehand this, and we'll see how well it turns out.
I set the depth of the router bit just by looking at the bit. Maybe I should have tested the depth on some scrap wood before using it on the workpiece. Turns out I had the bit set way deeper than I intended, so it was removing more material at once than I wanted. I didn't feel like I could do it in multiple passes because I was freehanding it. I have a different router with a plunge base, but it's a much bigger router. This Bosch 1617 EVS is easier to control and maneuver. And perhaps more importantly, I already had the bit in this router, so using this one meant a lot less setup. I am not a patient man. For the plunging action, I just leaned the router to the far side so I could then slowly plunge the bit into the starting point for each letter. I found it's a lot easier to follow the line when pulling the router towards me than when pushing it away from me.
Well, that is definitely a lot deeper than I was intending on going. And that double stick tape really sticks. Man, there we go. Huh. That's some good double stick tape. I'll put a link to the tape down in the comments if you want to get some of your own. Just make sure you can pull it back up.
Sadly, this would not be the only sanding that this project would require.
Alright, so I just want to put a little chamfer around the edges. So I'm going to do that on the router table. Vacuum on.
I was concerned that, similarly to the router bit being too deep earlier, the chamfer bit on the router table was too high, removing too much material at once. I kept reminding myself to keep my hands a good distance away from the spinning bit, just in case.
I think that chamfer turned out pretty well. Got a few streaks on here probably from the table, but I can sand those off and it'll be fine. Kind of a funky appearance there with the sawdust. The reason that I'm making this is we teach a Sunday school class for 8 and 9-year-olds at church. And the lesson for tomorrow references the scripture that talks about having patience. And so I thought there'd be a good visual to reinforce that concept. I'm not a big fan of praying for patience because then the saying goes that the Lord then blesses you with opportunities to learn patience. And I don't really want more of those opportunities. Even this right now, I'm having to exercise patience because I want to just move on to the next step. But I know that if I just move on to the next step, then there's going to be issues with these guys not having been sanded out properly. And then they'll always be that way. So even though this is a little tedious, I'm trying to be patient. I want to create more contrast between the lettering and the not letters. So I could use stain, but I think instead I'll use fire. Do a little bit more. I don't want to overdo it. Oh, getting really close. I think I want a little bit more color here and here. And maybe right in here. It's a little more than I wanted. That should do it.
Perhaps I should have noticed the little flame burning between the P and the A before I went to put away the torch and the propane. Since I didn't notice beforehand, that flame burned up that whole section a lot more than I intended.
All right, I'll be in shortly.
When I walked back, I had to blow it out as if it were candles on a birthday cake. I wanted the sign to cool off before applying any sealant. But then again, the message of the sign still hadn't really registered with me yet. So
And a little lacquer to lock it in.